Let's do it. All right, let's do it. Make sure we're good. Faith-based Friday. We here. Let's see. Let's make sure we're all straight. LinkedIn, what's happening? Yes, join. Okay, LinkedIn, let's go. Check. 1, 2, 1, 2, LinkedIn. Test. Faith-based Friday, we here. All right, we're good. Let me just share this out. Let me repost this. And Facebook, what's happening? Facebook. Yep, we're all good. Test. Share Faith-based Friday. Reinforcing Sunday's message into Friday's message when we all need it. We need it every day, but definitely a day of the week where you want to make sure the pastor's message is fresh on your skull, fresh in the mind. So that's where the idea came from. Let me just make sure we're good on YouTube and everything.
Lately, I've learned some car accident injury victims have been getting below value settlement offers from insurance companies right after their car accident.
Test. All right, yeah. Okay, folks, you see what we're doing. Hello. For those of you who are new to my world, my name, Aswan Crookshank, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time published author and educator. And what I do, what I created, what the whole plus LY Move Swift plus LY movement is all about. It's taking the teamwork lessons, the innovative teamwork lessons that are taught and learned on the football field and aligning them with businesses and business owners so they have a staff, an organization, a group of employees that moves as efficiently and as eagerly and is as hungry as a championship level high school or youth football team. All right. So before we get into our normal Faith-based Friday, let me get through a couple of these announcements. First and foremost, free boxing lessons. West Palm Beach, stand up. West Palm Beach. If you are interested, I do them every 2 weeks right here in not too far from where I'm currently at, to a park in Wellington that I do the boxing lessons. And it's definitely something, if you have the time, if you're available, that you should definitely consider. Also, business owners, make sure you go to freeguide.makeyourmove.com. That's freeguide.makeyourmove.com. Put your information in, and you will get a free guide, 10 easy to understand ways in which you can use innovative teamwork lessons to align with your business right now. And also tap in with me on the Patreon link, patreon.com/as144, where we're building an exclusive community of business owners that are in need of, that want support, that want to be supported, and support those who are looking to build cohesive teams. All right. Faith-based Friday. I think I've actually lost count in terms of how many of these that we've done, but I'll give you kind of a briefing before we get into it. What I have, the biggest change, I'll say, from where I am now to where I was a year from now. By the way, recording this, it's double, because it's Faith-based Friday. It's also Valentine's Day, a day in which you get a lot of commercial relationship stuff and candy and flowers and roses and all that. There's gonna be all sorts of Facebook social media posts where they're loving this one so much in love. I mean, it can be somewhat nauseating to have a day like today, depending on where you are, where your mindset is in regards to relationships. It can feel somewhat nauseating depending on who you are on today. All right. However, at the end of the day, it's a day that's celebrating love. It's a day that is about, community or families, people coming together, at least looking like they're in love, however you want to juxtapose it. I've been around the block. I've met people that absolutely love this holiday, and I've met people that absolutely hate this holiday, both male, female. So it works kind of both ways. All right. But what has been consistent throughout my time, and the biggest change that I've made in my life throughout this, particularly this time of year and this day, whatever, every day, is my faith in Jesus Christ, my faith in God, to be able to boldly speak it, because over time you see, and then you meet a lot of different people, whether male, female, friendship, however it is you want to define the previous relationships that you've been in. If it's a human being, they did not measure up to God's love. They did not measure up to God's consistency. They did not measure up to the things that God can do for you. All right. And that's really where I want to take the message today, because I started speaking. So for those of you who don't know, the church that I do go to and I do regularly attend now, I've made my decision to have this as my church home. I'm a group leader at Life Church, and I'm also have joined several other groups, sobriety groups, all sorts of things now that I have the time. Last month I was traveling a lot, but now I've really put some roots down, and I'm meeting starting to get with the church community and things like that. And I spoke on how he, Pastor Craig Rochelle delivered a message along the lines of dating and who you're with and how you pick this perfect person. And today I'll reinforce this message because I know somebody needs to hear it. All right. I myself have been single, quote single, end quote, for a fairly long time. And the reason I'm putting air quotes is because, like I was saying this morning, when you really know God, when you really follow God's word, when you really develop a walk of faith, when you really are seeking a relationship with God above anything, you're never really going to feel single. Whether the person is in a physical way or whether you're with a physical person or not, you're not going to feel single, because you know that there's going to be some consistency there, and you will not be settled to just be in a relationship with someone, because that's really kind of what I see for the most part. So for those of you who don't know, I've worked in athletics, worked in fitness, and I've worked in education. Between those three industries, there's a lot of broken homes. There's a lot of single parents, a lot of kids. There's a lot of kids in general. So you get to be in a situation where you're listening to other families and their situations. You get to be in a position where you're seeing couples come in. Like I done got to the point where there's been married couples that have come into a gym, and within my time as their trainer, they've gotten a divorce, right? There've been times where, I've had couples people that come in that are single, and now they've met the right one and all that kind of stuff. All sorts of situations that span a lot of different ways. And the point of me kind of breaking it down, especially on a day like today, is that it should be a reminder. A day like today should be a reminder that God's voice has to be something that you listen to throughout every move you make. You never want to be in a situation where you're settling and you're settling and you're settling and you're settling and you're settling. So I will here's what happened this past Sunday. All right. So this past Sunday, Pastor Craig Rochelle, his message was something called 30-second theology. And basically it was really, really amazing. By the way, it was one of those things where it was the first time I've ever seen, and this is what drew me to Life Church initially. I started going there, it was week 1 of the NFL football season, week 1. And they had, hot dogs. They decorated the place with all sorts of NFL teams and football and stuff. And it's like, I was sold. I was like, and not only that, but they was giving out hot dogs. This is week 1 of the NFL of regular season. They're giving out hot dogs. Football season's going on. They serving. I'm like, okay, you see, this is me. This is me. This is me, right? So this past Sunday, it was Super Bowl Sunday. And the same thing was going on. They had hot dogs on the grill. They had a bunch of stuff going on outside the church, like balloon bounces and like little cotton candy. It was almost like a carnival. And then Pastor Craig Rochelle, his message was about the Super Bowl commercials. He basically picked, I think it was like 4 different Super Bowl commercials, like 30-second Super Bowl commercials. And then he spoke a word about those commercials. So I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to base today's faith-based Sunday on that, because, you know, obviously if I play the commercials on my channel, then it gets demonetized, or they won't be able to monetize that video. But when I looked on the Life Church YouTube page, they had this message where it's hearing God's voice. It's hearing God's voice. And I listened to that one this morning. So that was the first time I actually listened to it. And it's so, to me, it was so important to, where was it? There was I'm gonna let him play in terms of what he said about listen to what God says, but I'll let that play in a second. Let me just explain this. It was refreshing to me because on a day like today, there's so much pressure, right? There's so much pressure from the outside world to live a certain worldview, to live a certain type of life, to be happy. And then this is speaking for anybody single, or if you're in a relationship with someone. The question now becomes on the inside, because you're dealing with matters of your heart. You're dealing with how much you're dealing with what you actually feel and how happy you are with a specific person. In a day like today, you could be, happily, quote unquote, happy with someone on social media, but actually really want to be in a different situation, right? You could be very much unhappy in the situation you're in, but if you leave it up to what the outside world will think based on what you post and based on what you're putting out there, you would think that you're happy, but you're really not. Or you could be in situations where you're single and you're miserable and you feel like you'll never meet that person. It's kind of a reminder that you're single and all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to a day like today, hearing God's voice, I believe, is absolutely important. Absolutely something that you need to make sure you're doing every day. I want to make sure I'm emphasizing this. Every single day. If you get in the habit of doing this every single day, then these issues that I'm discussing with you won't become as big of a deal. There's still going to be things that you have to deal with, but you won't feel like you're taking it on alone. All right. You won't feel like you're taking it on. That's the worst feeling in the world. Let me tell you, I have had I spoke to you guys briefly about it yesterday, but I have had an absolutely insane dating history. It's crazy. All right. Like, to the point where there's been some women that have hurt me, to the point where I remember actually buying a 12-pack of beer, finding some place in the woods in the cold, and just tearing all 12 of them up, walking alone by myself in the woods, finding some tree stump, getting blacked out drunk to the point where I was scared to even drive home. That's how bad it's been. I mean, there was one time actually where there was one girl that did something so bleeping low, like a deep betrayal. That this was really before I found Christ, before I found God, where I was really, really low and really, really deeply hurt by what she did and how she did it, and the way it ruined a lot of the work I was attempting to do. I felt so betrayed by her that I remember I was at a bar. Yeah, I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings. I mean, just tearing them up, tall glass after tall glass, absolutely tearing them up. And the bartender happened to be a female. And I'm assuming, because again, I barely remembered half this stuff, I'm assuming that I was expressing my broken heart to her, because she saw me maybe about a week later. She saw me, and she saw me kind of out and about, and I guess she was like in the parking lot or whatever. Yeah, she saw me in the parking lot. She pulled up on me. She goes, "Hey, I'm your bartender. Remember me?" I was like, "I'm your bartender," and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, "You still having lady problems?" And I'm like, "Oh God," So I've grown since then, thank God, and it's because of a lot of the things that Pastor Craig Groeschel is about to talk about. So let me let him take over for a second, and we'll address it.
Ever find it difficult to hear God's voice?
Oh yes.
For example, if you have a decision that you need to make, and so you think, well, maybe I should pray about it. And so you pray about it. You might say, okay, God, I want to do what you want. What is it that you want me to do? And then sometimes maybe a thought will enter your head, and you'll be like, was that God? Or was that me? Was that my emotions? Is that what I want? Was that the Holy Spirit? Or is that the pizza I had late last night talking to me today, right? How do you know? Wouldn't it be incredible? Wouldn't it be amazing to know exactly what God wants for you? I mean, imagine if you could ask God a question and you could get a really clear answer. Kind of like, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember the Magic 8 Ball. Anybody ever play with the Magic 8 Ball? You're kind of laughing at that. Wouldn't it be really cool, like, if I had a Magic 8 Ball right now? Like, does anybody happen to have one on you? Like, anybody? Anybody? Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow, what a coincidence. Pastor Sam just happens to have, wow. It's almost like we had that planned. But you remember how you could like ask the Magic 8 Ball question, like Magic 8 Ball, should I break up with this rude person I've been dating? Without a doubt. Magic 8 Ball, should I send this angry text? My reply is no.
I've definitely been there.
Magic 8 Ball, you might ask, should I serve in Life Kids? It is certain. I didn't even look. It just says it is certain. That's just what it said. I just think God just spoke to you right there. When we had 2 kids, we said, Magic 8 Ball, should we stop having kids? Ask again later. We stopped asking the Magic 8 Ball after having 6 kids. We retired it. Wouldn't it be amazing if you had a question and you could ask God and you could clearly hear his voice? The good news is you can.
All right, I gotta pause him real quick there because he's hitting a trigger based on the story that I told before I let him go. All right. Asking to hear from a higher calling does not mean getting drunk. It does not mean doing what I expressed to you I did before I started that clip, to where when a woman would hurt me or do something that was a deep betrayal or do something that I really, really still haven't figured out ways to get over, it does not mean I'm going to go buy a 12-pack, find some place in the woods and just, kick them back, or find some bar, find some strip club, find something that's going to numb the pain. That's not going to do anything but actually make the pain worse. It's not going to do anything but make the situation worse. What you have to do, he's going to explain it, but what you have to do is make sure you ask the question of yourself of why I put myself in that situation, so you can either avoid the situation from happening again, which isn't likely, but if the situation does happen again, you're prepared. You're so much stronger to deal with these situations, so much stronger to deal with certain things because you allowed yourself to feel the pain. I've said it on multiple occasions. I'm going to re-emphasize that. I heard it was something, I can't even remember the name of the song, but it's this. A Band-Aid is not going to fix a bullet wound. Band-Aid is not going to fix a bullet wound. When you have an open cut, it's an open sore, you got to take rubbing alcohol. In fact, I just got my hair cut. Give you a perfect example. Just got my hair cut. Shout out to Swallow Professional. Got my hair cut last night. And, he usually uses this shaver. Not the normal razor. He actually uses the shaver. And I remember when I first went to him, I was like, yo, man, look, that stuff bumps me up. I'm a black man. So using that, my skin is too sensitive to get that shaver. But his rubbing alcohol has, I've been going to him for well over a year at this point. His rubbing alcohol, or the alcohol that he has, the alcohol that he has makes it so we don't bump up. The only thing is it burns like a MFer, right? It burns. So last night he was putting it all over my face and it was burning. And it's the same thing when you have an open cut, when someone has hurt you to the point that it's open. If you don't take some rubbing alcohol and really, clean out that cut, clean out that sore, make sure all of it it doesn't get infected and all that, then it has not properly healed. If you just try to take a Band-Aid on or use another person to keep the Band-Aid or put a Band-Aid on, eventually you're going to still feel the wounds. It's going to get infected. All right. Same thing with relationships, same thing with life in general. All right. So let me let him keep cooking.
in a message series called He Promises. And we're talking about the promises. Powerful. It's like a sword. It encourages the pilot.
Yeah, this was it. This was it. Was this it?
Hear what he has to say.
This is it.
Now, some of you may say, okay.
All right.
And so God said to him, I'm going to and a dog and a white picket fence. You're going to be blood.
This is it. Yeah. This is the part I want to.
Let me tell you what God didn't say to the 12.
Yes. Okay. Let me let him go. I'm gonna let him go. All right. I'm gonna let him go because
I told Samuel, go and Eli. What do I do? What do I do? And he said, you. And I don't know what it was like, but he heard his name, and so he thought the priest was calling him temple for the priest named Eli. Now, Eli wasn't obeying God, and the little boy Samuel probably didn't know God, but Samuel was doing the religious rituals in the temple. He was doing the religious work, but he didn't have a relationship with God, which brings up a side thought that a ritual is very different than a relationship. Some of you perhaps have been...
A ritual is different than a relationship. What we're seeing today is rituals. Valentine's Day, you get her some flowers, you get her some candy, you get her whatever people do on Valentine's Day. It's different than a relationship. Ritual, relationship. Ritual, that's a good, man, I got to get that down. I got to write that down myself. Whoa. Ritual versus relationship. Okay, I gotta make sure I'm just see. Now you guys see how I get more. What fills me up. Oh man. All right. Preach that. Talk that talk. Let me get this down. So you guys can see ritual versus relationship. All right. Yeah, that's okay.
Religious ritual, doing some of the right things without actually knowing the God who loves you. Samuel was doing the rituals, but he didn't yet know God. And so one night he went to bed and he heard his name, Samuel. Or maybe it's like Samuel. I don't know what it was like, but he heard his name. And so he thought the priest was calling him. So he ran into the priest's room and said, Eli, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And Eli said, I didn't do anything, go back to bed. And Samuel goes back and gets into bed and he falls asleep and he hears his name, Samuel. And he runs in and he says, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And Eli says, that wasn't me, go back to bed. And Samuel goes back to bed and he goes to sleep and he hears Samuel. And he runs in and says, Eli, what do I do? What do I do? And is that you? And Eli, he realized that the Lord was most likely speaking to Samuel. And so in 1 Samuel 3, verse 8, Eli realized the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, go and lie down. And if God calls you, what are you going to say? Everybody read this aloud. Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. Those of you online, I want you to type that in the comment section. Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. And I would love it if all of you would pause for a moment. And let's just say this prayerfully. I'll go first and then you follow. We're going to say, speak, Lord. Your servant is listening. One more time, just very, very prayerfully. Some of you have a decision to make. You need direction. And so what are we going to pray? We're going to pray, speak, Lord. Your servant is listening. And so that's what Samuel does. God, what are you trying to say? Speak to me. And what did God say to him? Let me tell you what God didn't say to the 12-year-old boy. God didn't say, hey, Samuel, you're doing a great job. Therefore, I'm going to bless you with that cute 12-year-old girl that you like, that you met at the playground. And when you're 21, you're going to get married. And you're going to have a good job, making 6 figures, according to that time. And you're going to have 2.5 children and a dog and a white picket fence. You're going to be blessed beyond measure.
Nope.
God didn't say that to him.
Nope. And that is the problem. That right there is the problem. If you don't have a relationship with God, that becomes your goal. That becomes, you start putting limits, you start putting, tangible things as the goal, and you don't realize that's actually limiting you for what you can be getting. You see how that flipped? Again, the world is going to paint that picture, the white picket fence, the 6-figure job, all the corner office, and that is what the world is going to call a success. All right. But how do you know you couldn't have gotten more of that? That you see how they twist it. I'm gonna let them cook, and then I'll close you guys out in about 5 minutes.
Something to him that he didn't want to hear.
Ooh, 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 ooh. He didn't want to hear. The people telling you the stuff that you don't want to hear, that is what's going to grow. That's what's going to make it so you actually grow. You get out of your comfort zone and you achieve things.
Told Samuel, you can read about it in the text, he warned him that the priest Eli wasn't listening to God. And he didn't discipline his rebellious sons, and he blasphemed the name of God. And so God said to him, I'm going to shock all of Israel. And God's told a 12-year-old boy, I'm going to carry out my judgment against Eli and his entire family. That's a hard message for a 12-year-old boy. And that's why I want to remind you, don't ask God to speak to you unless you want to hear what he has to say.
That was it. That was it. That right there, we can cut the whole thing right there. I wanted to make sure that message got clear. All right. On a day like today, there's so many angles that one can approach this from because of what we accept, what we allow within our own families, what we teach in the home, what we actually like, the physical being. Do we, like someone just because of what they have physically? Again, I expressed to you this to you all just yesterday. I have been very guilty of liking women just because of their physical attributes and things of that nature. But when you really break down, and I hold myself accountable, I don't blame anybody else but as one Crookshank for still being single on another Valentine's Day. This is not as one coming in here complaining, well, this one didn't do this and this girl didn't do it. I can do that, but it's absolutely unproductive to where it is I'm trying to go. All right. It's unproductive for where I'm trying to go for me to stand on here, given everything that I have accomplished over the past couple of years. It's absolutely unproductive and absolutely hypocritical of me to sit up here and complain about something when I've been blessed beyond belief. All right. When you ask for this fulfilling relationship, understand that God has made this person for you. They've made this person for you. That person is there, that female, that wife, that perfect person that I hate to use the term perfect, but that person that you can't live without is there for you. You have to make sure that you're doing two things. Number one, you're always putting God first in everything you do. And number two, that you have yourself in a ready, set position. You cannot expect this person to come find you and pursue you and want to be with you and want to get married to you and want to build a house and start a family. You can't expect that person to come and get you if you don't have yourself in a ready, set position. You don't get to do what you want to do in the meantime. You don't get to carry out flings. You don't get to flirt. You don't get to be a person without integrity. You don't get to be a person that isn't worshiping or isn't living in their purpose. You don't get to be the person that is just running around doing whatever it is they want to do and expect for some fulfilling relationship to come to you the next day. You don't get to, you can't have it both ways. All right. At some point, you got to put it's like my coaches. And I want to close you out with a football comparison, a football analogy. All right. We play a linebacker. And when we would diagnose a play, Coach Trick would always tell us, look, put your foot in the ground and go. When you see that screen, when you see that tackle, walk, when you see those linemen walking and it's a screen and the running back is right behind them, put your foot in the ground and go. Put your foot in the ground and go. That's the way it has to be when it comes to relationships or when it comes to your relationship with your faith and developing your walk of faith. You got to put your foot in the ground and simply go and move in the way that God wants you to move and the things that are right by him. And that is what's going to allow the right person to be drawn to you. You don't get to do what you want to do in the meantime and what the world tells you have to do, because like we expressed, and I'm probably going to do a whole article. This was a good one. I had to write down. We're going to have to do a whole episode on that concept, but you don't you don't get to really enjoy these rituals that we have on Valentine's Day if you're not seeking first honest, open, and real relationship. And then you can enjoy the rituals, whether it's this, whether it's Christmas, Halloween, St. Patrick's Day, whatever holiday you want to put up. All right. So all that being said, again, as promised, I usually like to keep Faith-Based Friday. I usually like to keep it only 30 minutes long. Main website to check out to dive deeper into all my work. It's makeyourmove.com. That's MakeYamove.com. Also, be sure to tap in with me on the Patreon link. That's patreon.com/aswand44 right there on the screen. Everyone out there, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.